Hello everybody, I hope you are doing well. Want to answer a question really quickly someone asked me, and that is just simply, is transgenderism consistent with the biblical worldview? Now, I've got a quick answer, I got a little bit longer answer. Here's the quick answer. The answer is no. No, it is not consistent with the biblical worldview. Now, a little bit longer answer. Here's the thing. First of all, before we even get to this conversation, we have to understand that we are not dealing with just theory and ideas and all that. We're dealing with people. And whenever you are dealing with people who have identified in a certain way and you are telling them that that identity is considered a sin in the eyes of God, that's a hard thing for them to get their mind around. And so we have to be very, very careful that we always move forward realizing that we are dealing with people with feelings and people who's, they're in a broken place and they found an identity and a sense of peace in this. And even though we understand as Christian worldview, people, that this is not consistent, at the same time, you have to realize if these people are not Christians, we don't start with telling them that, that transgenderism is wrong. We start saying that all the things that we're doing is wrong, that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And so before I try to fix you, I want to bring you to the cross and say, you know what? Transgenderism is not your only issue. If you've ever lied, you ever cheated, you ever stole, you ever done anything, then you have fallen from the perfect moral standard that God has made for all of us, and you are destined to be separated from God in all eternity in a place called hell. Don't want to go there. I know you don't either. So Jesus has provided a way of salvation for all of us. And if we receive what Christ did on the cross for our salvation, allow Him to wash away our sins, and we give our allegiance and follow Him, then we are promised eternity in heaven. That's amazing. Then we can talk about all the different broken places in our life. So the simple answer is no. Transgenderism is not consistent with the biblical worldview. The longer answer is that's the wrong place to start when you want to talk about the idea of what a Christian should do. The Christian should start with saying all the things are sin. Jesus provided a way for salvation, and then once you get to that place, then you can have the next conversations, which leads to one other thing, and that is you may not get to have that question because people aren't always, they don't want to talk about all the sin. They want to talk about that one sin and that one issue. And so if you get put into a conversation where you are talking to someone who is a fellow believer, fellow Christ follower, but they say that they don't think that, the idea of being a transgender person is considered a sin, this is how you have that conversation. The Bible said in Genesis chapter 1 through 3 that in the beginning, God created male and female. There was no gray area, there was no spectrum across those lines. It was male and female. Now, the Bible said that in the Old Testament, and then Jesus ratified it in the New Testament. Someone was asking him a question about divorce and remarriage, and he said in Matthew chapter 19 that didn't you read that in the beginning, God created male and female, and it's for this reason that a man shall leave his father and his mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one. Therefore, Jesus ratified what was already in the Old Testament, that God made male and female. That means that was their biological identity that had nothing to do with how they felt about it. That's just how God made them. What I do when I talk to people who are really dealing with this idea is I tell people that there is a thing that we're all born into, and that's called sin. And that sin breaks our mentalities in so many different ways. And we're all born with different forms of brokenness. There are people who don't struggle with transgenderism, but they struggle with homosexuality, lesbianism, all those things. There are people who struggle with sexual perversions in the heterosexual world, with lust, and they're always trying to hook up with people because there's a broken place in them there. So we all have some form of broken addiction. That's why Jesus came. It's not just to save us, but then help us walk toward freedom and wholeness in our life. The goal is not to be heterosexual. The goal is to be holy in our sexuality, and God's laid out plan for holy sexuality is the union for life between a male and a female. And here's the thing I tell people is I say, listen, I'm not interested in your feelings because I can't understand them. They're yours. They're your feelings based on 1,000 different things that's happened. And I say I'm not interested because they're too complex for me. I don't understand them. I don't understand my own feelings half the time. What I do want to encourage you to do is to trust your Creator. If you're a Christ follower, then trust that God in His infinite wisdom made you the way He did for a reason. And just because you feel like you're a woman born in a man's body, that's okay. I don't know what to tell you about that. But what I can tell you is to not trust your feelings, trust how God made you. And in the small, like, was it 1% chance of people who are intersex who are born that way, that in that situation, then you still go with the idea of trusting your Creator with the fact that He is able to lead you in that, and you have a very different conversation with people who are born in that way. But that is a very small minority. For most people, they're living according to their feelings, not according to how God made them. And that's not easy. That's why as Christians, we can't just attack things we don't struggle with, but instead realize every one of us have the broken place in some place in our life, and so afford people the grace that we hope to receive ourselves. So finally, let me say this again. Is transgenderism consistent with the biblical worldview? No. The longer answer is that the Bible said in the beginning, God created male and female. Jesus ratified it again in the New Testament. Male, female, and not a spectrum. So when we talk about this, we tell people that once you have received Christ, what Christ is going to do is you follow Him as He is going to help bring into clarity that identity for you as He heals you of any sexual brokenness that we all deal with. And so you're going to eventually identify as the identification that you had at birth. And can you trust your Creator? The answer is yes. Simple, not simplistic. Make sure you walk slowly, gracefully, and with many tears with all the people in your life who struggle with this, because that's why God put us in their life, is so that we could love them and walk with them toward freedom.